when you find healthy people, really fight for a relationship with them because it'll shift your whole life. It is the story of my life is finding healthy people and then pursuit of them. And then it changed everything.
Hello, everyone. We are Greg and Jackie Francis, and welcome to High Performance Parenting, where our passionate goal is to encourage you to raise champion children in a crazy world. Every week, we will bring you multiple episodes from our extensive experience of raising our six happy, healthy, successful, godly kids who are confidently equipped to win big in life.
We deeply believe that any parent who is provided with the right knowledge and continual support can raise amazing kids. And when they do, all of our futures get better. If raising up future generations of absolute champions matters to you as much as it does to us, here's how you can contribute. Like and share this podcast with everyone you know. And together, let's embrace this journey of raising champion kids in a crazy world.
Brad here. Hope you're doing great with my good friend. Part 2 of hopefully many more to come. Greg Francis, the mastermind of high performance parenting. And maybe I better say Jackie's the mastermind E. You guys are obviously a dynamic duo working hard. I've listened and watched many episodes, 135 audio, and I think you got around 40 video now, and that's Redwood parenting, right?
Yeah.
When you've added the video side of it. So for those of you listening here that want to really dig into parenting, which I could not put a higher emphasis of importance, I would log on to those channels. Greg, what are the channels again, by the way? Is it just high performance parenting? Just Google that? Or
if you do any kind of search within like Spotify or Apple or any of the main places and just type in high performance parenting, it'll show up at the top. And and then with if you're on YouTube, it's Redwood Parenting.
Okay, good on YouTube. Okay, right on. Not just trying to do a shameless plug. It's just that there's no way in 30 minutes we can cover 135, let alone 200 episodes, let alone we probably couldn't get out of your first 5 years of your life. Honestly, right? Just the way you grew up and the difficulties of your family origin.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that would listen to this show that didn't know you would think you grew up in a very quality family, loving parents, had dinner at night, brothers that encouraged you and edified you, and life went great. But as you have shared with me, it was quite the opposite.
Yeah.
And a lot of people listening, Greg, have grown up in really dysfunctional environments, and they don't want to repeat that, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to have the same thing. My dad grew up in a divorced, alcohol-based family. His own grandfather committed suicide in the same house they're in, had to deal with that. The kids were split up. He stayed with his older brother, who was an alcoholic when he was little. He just never had any parenting, right? So he comes into my life and he tries to raise me and my two brothers, and it's a train wreck from perspective of what we're trying to talk about. And the only reason I say this is because it doesn't need to repeat, right? Mm-hmm. We don't need to continue to have issues with our kids or our grandkids that we had as kids. But the only way to fix that is intentionality. That is the word of the day. Is you have to really decide. In episode 1 with us, you shared a lot about family meetings and building a constitution and a structure for what it means to be on the fantastic team, as I call it. I don't know if you call it that, but so one of the things that I would enjoy hearing you talk about is when I'm at your home, we're sitting there at your kitchen and someone's cooking and someone's making bread and someone's planning something, and everybody's got this role, but yet we're all kind of there. It's not like 3 kids in a room behind an iPad playing video games. It's like everybody's there. Yeah. And we're all conversing. I feel like I'm sitting there with a bunch of adults, even though, let's see, Ellie is how old now?
12.
12, okay. And so 12 to 16, and then Hunter's 6, right?
Yeah.
Right, so it's not like they're adults. I mean, the twins, your oldest 3 are, they're pretty adultish.
Yeah.
Right? They're pretty dang mature because just the nature of the way you've raised them. But talk to me about the issue of kids interacting with families, right? It's mom. They just drag at their parents. The parents can't have a conversation.
Yeah.
Or the kids don't engage with the adults. They're on their phones. They're very bored. I had someone say, are you here? Well, you're not talking to me. You're just talking to them, and I'm on my phone. So, and then when I ask you something, huh? What? Oh, and they're so unengaged. Um, I'll use the word insulting, but that's maybe a self-image of mine. It just seems as though they don't get the value in it. Would you mind just kind of talking about how you've created that culture in your household of these young adult, teenage type kids that typically are very in their own world, but tend to engage with an adult world in a really mature way?
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of layers to it. I think you know, one is that with us, we've been pretty intentional about protecting the atmosphere, meaning
Okay.
that my kids haven't been exposed really to many movies where kids in the movies are being dishonoring to parents. And there's a lot of
Wow.
movies like that. Like I even tried a couple times. You go back and you try to watch like something I thought was a classic when I was a kid, like Home Alone. And we started watching it with our kids, and we got about 10 minutes in, and we're like, we gotta turn this off. This is nuts. The way these kids talk to their parents and the way that they do it. We don't even like to let that. And we'll talk about it, but we also don't like force it on them, if that makes sense, where they have to experience this.
Because people think it's funny, but it's not funny at all.
No, it's not funny at all, right? And so like this, so just picture that we have chosen to remove our family from those types of environments being injected into their minds, especially as really young kids, because anytime we've ever even flirted with it, our kids started acting like what they were watching, like every time,
Sure.
and we've had to undo it. We're pretty intentional about not spending too much time with even other families who are really dealing with this as a mess in their house. Doesn't mean we don't still serve people and visit people, but we have a limit of how much influence we're going to allow them to have into our life. And then we talk these things through. And so I think a lot of people would kind of, almost challenge us on this to a certain extent, but it's served us very, very well, right? So we don't let them on the screens. I mean, we're even cautious about things like, if we watch anything in our house, it's usually sports. We're a sports family, but I mean, we have it where it's whatever service we have where you can pause. We don't play commercials because the commercials are just as bad as some
No
of the
doubt.
movies. Like everybody in our family knows. Like even Hunter, the minute that we're watching a golf tournament or something, I'm playing on the simulator. If a commercial comes on, she's like, "Dad, pause it," or she'll walk over and hit the button. Like we've just trained
Wow.
them. But you see, we didn't just say, "Hey guys, we're not doing this." We explained to them. We actually went to the Word and explained to them all the stuff that the Bible says about not getting the wrong input into you. How you have to guard your eye gates and your ear gates. And so, we do a lot, as I know you do as well with everybody you coach. We don't just tell people what to do. We spend a lot of time making sure you understand
Yeah.
why. Like why do we do the things that we do? And so then, you add all these different layers in there, and then again, you throw in when, okay, Mr. Brad's going to be coming over, and there's probably going to be a time we're going to be in the kitchen, and I explain to the kids, I'm like, first of all, you need to understand, probably it's going to be okay for you guys to hang out with us for the most part, but there might be some times where I'm like, hey, listen, you guys go do something else. And what that means is I haven't seen my buddy in a long time, and I just really want to selfishly actually spend some time with my
Hmm.
bro, you know? And they're like, okay, that makes sense, Dad. I said, but otherwise, just be in the room and and be there. And I said, and here's how you engage when you're around adults. And we literally take time to
Wow.
train them what is the way to be respectful. And I explained to them that if you don't learn this skill set, you're not going to be invited, right? Because the reality is, I don't know if you've experienced this, Brad. I don't know how many people I see, the lack of training that their kids have absolutely limits the powerful relationships they could be enjoying. I can't tell you how much that happens, right? It goes from we can't even have these people around too long because their kids are negatively influencing our house. And our job, our priority is first and foremost to make sure we are stewarding these kids well, right? So even if it makes this person mad because we don't spend a lot of time because your kid is like not doing what we would do, you know what I mean? Not doing being a bad influence really, then we just can't do it. And we just we make a lot of decisions like that. So anyway, so if everybody's in the kitchen, first of all, I think our kids enjoy the conversations that happen with our adult friends because they're very secure in the fact that we aren't going to let the atmosphere be contaminated in any way. So they have to be nervous about it. Number two, we always see it as like training. We see it like, listen, we want to teach you guys how to be amazing communicators, great at people skills, learning how to network. These are the different ways that you interact. Make sure that you're not just, aimlessly staring at a person without ever, like repeating some of the stuff they say back to them, asking more questions. Like we do a lot of prep work. People ask, how do your kids know how to shake hands and how do they know how to have such good eye contact? I said, because every time we've had somebody over when they were young, we spent 20 minutes before the people arrived saying, let's run through the role model. Let's run through this scenario. And I would be the person walking in the door and I would be like, and I'd say, stop. You're not looking, Drews, you're looking at your feet. You got to look me in the eyes. Right? I'd be like, stop, Ellie, you got to talk louder because you're mumbling. It makes you seem like you're not confident. I'd be like, hey, Bella, you're not shaking my hand with a firmness. You're slapping a dead fish in my hand and it's weird. But people would be like, and then they'd come over, and here's what would happen. Okay, they just went through all this prep. They're even a little bit nervous. This is when they were even littler, right? And then they'd come in and they'd shake the hands of the people that showed up, and everybody that would show up, they'd be like, "You kids are amazing. Like you kids are. How, I don't even know what to say about you," and their confidence just goes through the roof. You know, so all of these scenarios where we've helped through prepping on the front end and then celebrating after, plus all the positive feedback and reinforcement that happens, I will tell you, I think if you ask our kids, they'll tell you all the time that, man, I'm so glad my mom and dad prepped me so well. We kind of know what to do almost in any situation before we get there, and it just gives us confidence. And so we take a lot of time to do that. And that kind of is the same scenario anytime that people are over. I feel like they know. And if they don't, because, the reality is like, if they're young and they're running around, I mean, Hunter right now, she'll go and she knows she wants to go play in a different room sometimes when we're all together, right? She'll grab Chosen and they run off to the doll room, mostly because they want just some freedom and not have to be in trouble if they interrupt us, And I'm okay with that. That's great. To me, that's respectful.
Yeah. So, okay, if you don't mind me just taking a little bit deeper dive on that, most families are going to come into this information already kind of a wreck, or maybe they don't think they're a wreck, but there's certainly things that embarrass them. I see some parents that kind of like, they know it's not appropriate, but it's kind of what their kid is, and now they feel like it's too late, or it is a wreck, and they just have lost control of their kids. They were not parented themselves, so how do you correct the ship? I mean, how aggressive are you at course correction? I mean, you've taught this obviously a lot. You didn't have to do a lot of course correction because you didn't have midlife train wreck of making it aware, but some people get married and they have to merge kids together, so you got that situation as well. But talk to me a little bit about midlife course correction in the culture.
Yeah, it's that's a $1 million question, and because you're right, there's so many different layers of
Yep.
dynamics that are happening, and so, I mean, my advice is got to start right. I mean, it might sound super simple, but I almost feel like some families they have just completely lost confidence that they can actually have health in their home. And so they're just kind of riding it out. And that's why I don't know if you ever hear this, but I don't know how many times I hear parents even joke about like, well, my job is to get you to 18 and then you're on your own. It's like I'm going to endure the pain of dealing with you until you're 18, and now you can go figure out life by yourself after that, right? And that's kind of how my upbringing was to a certain extent. But I think you just got to start. And I've mentioned this to you before that pretty much everybody that comes to us for any kind of parenting, even marriage advice, family advice, really, one of the first things I have them all do is I have them take the time to put this together, right? Where it is like really, what do you want your family constitution to be? And by the way, probably 60% of this I got from somebody else that was doing something similar, and then I took it and I made it unique to our family. And as I told you, you can have this, you can share it with whoever you want, and hopefully it blesses them. But I'll just give you an example. Like part of our family constitution, and we wrote it with intentionally this way. We, the people, the Francis family, do dedicate our family to the task of enriching others' lives. We, the people, the Francis family, in order to form a more perfect union, do establish these two basic principles based on God's living word. Number one, love and honor our Creator. Number two, love and respect others. We also hereby establish 6 family guidelines from these above 2 principles. We honor mom and dad by obeying them fully and joyfully. See, this is something we recognize every single week. Even if you are obeying us, but if you're doing it with an attitude, you're not maintaining our standard. We honor our possessions and others by taking great care of them and putting our things away properly after we have used them. All of these possessions are God's; they are not ours, right? We honor our commitment to our family by performing all chores responsibly and timely with excellence. We honor friends and family by having good manners and exercising responsibility towards others. We manage ourselves powerfully in all situations. That's part of what I learned from you, the whole powerful versus powerless conversation. A powerful person, despite what goes on around you, you still take the ownership that it's up to me of how I'm going to respond, right? And let's see here. We live life to the fullest. We take positive, calculated, kingdom-guided chances with people and things. We don't play small. We never gossip, murmur, or complain. We only speak words that give life to our futures and the futures of others. So if you put together a constitution like this, and you really are like, we're going to edify the people doing these things right in our family, it starts again. It starts this process where our atmosphere helps do a lot of the training that we're trying to talk about right now. So I would suggest for people out there, start with something, get something in place, and you know what? It might get resistance at first. There's probably a lot of things that there hasn't been standards defined, and so if you have a 7-year-old in your household and they're defining the standard because there is no other standard defined, it's going to be an immature mess, right? And so anyway, so you just have to start. To speak to your other point real quick, so I don't forget, Brad, is that one of the things that I think helped me a lot to be able to, I would say, move past an unhealthy upbringing into a place where I wasn't going to allow. And again, I haven't done this perfect, but I think I had a season of my life where I almost felt victimized because of my past. I was almost a little bit like, well, all this would be easier if I didn't grow up in an alcoholic family. All this would be easier if there wasn't abuse. All this would be easier if there was some encouragement. Like, I remember going through a season of just thinking, like, this isn't fair that I had to grow up that way, and now I have to be the one to overcome it all because it takes so much energy and effort. And I was pretty unforgiving. I think I was angry for a while, but I will tell you 2 things. One, realizing that the hand you're dealt, you're never going to win a hand that you have a victim card in. Like, you just have to remove it and catch yourself. I had to catch myself. It probably took me a couple of years of really realizing how much in my thinking and in my words I was a victim, right? Once I said, okay, I'm no longer going to act like a victim, because victims just repeat stuff. I am going to actually act like a person who can be victorious. And even if I have to be the fighter, that's the one that changed the generations, great. I put a quote up in my office. It ran in my family until it ran into me.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just kept this kind of thinking in front of me all the time, But then the forgiveness part, with my dad in particular, I remember getting to the point where, as a Christian, I started realizing that God commands us to forgive, and it's not really for the other person's benefit. It's so we don't carry the load of it, right? And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. So you know what? It's kind of hard to forgive when the person you're trying to forgive keeps doing the same thing constantly, And so here I was like, but I need to do this. I need to do this for me. I need to do it for the future of our family. So I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I am going to just choose to accept this. And what happened for this season, Brad, and I think this will help a lot of people, is that I didn't even realize it. I went through a layer of forgiveness, but it wasn't like full forgiveness. And here's what I mean by that. I would say it was discounted forgiveness. And so, like, if somebody would have asked me, okay, well, what about, your relationship with your dad? I would be like, well, there was this, and this. However, I don't really know what he went through. However, I think he had a pretty bad deal. I'm not trying to be judgy here, but the reality was, what I needed to do was I needed to own some of this stuff, like at the deepest level, without making excuses about why it was the way it was. So I had to actually be willing to talk this through with some really dear friends that wouldn't allow me to discount the forgiveness. And I had one friend actually, he said, I appreciate everything you're doing and how much grace you're trying to show toward your dad. That's a good, healthy thing. He said, but for you personally, though, I want you to know that, when you were a young boy, you needed to be able to crawl up on your dad's lap and have him look at you like you're the apple in his eye. You needed encouragement. You needed some tenderness. You needed some love. You needed to hear that you're a winner. You needed these things. And he said there's only one person on the planet that really could have done it, and that was your dad. And he didn't. I remember having this conversation, and it was really like I wanted to almost defend my dad. You know what I mean? But then what he explained to me was he said, see, if you discount the truth, now you only partially forgive. And you see, when you forgive, there's an exchange that happens. You release your dad from all these things that probably should or shouldn't have happened. And now God, your Father in heaven, Papa, can actually start giving you all the things that you just let go that you were missing from before. And it really was a game changer for me. Like I didn't even realize how much I was discounting forgiveness. And I'll tell you what, it gave me a full release. And ever since I've done that, I really haven't had any kind of bitterness towards my dad. I haven't really had, I don't even really grade it, but I also feel free to start creating what I need to be from me down, if that makes sense, right? Versus being stuck, or like, as you will say, like being captive to, that's the scenarios that I was put in. So anyways, I just encourage people to get to a point of real forgiveness. Get rid of the victim card. Just realize that your situation is what it is. You taught me before that you are exactly where you need to be to learn everything you need to learn to become everything you ever hoped for, right? And that's a great philosophy, right? So anyways, sorry, I'm going on this, but it's such a big topic.
We're scratching the scratch of the depth of the conversation. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want to raise great kids. I've always been fascinated by the mama in line at Safeway with her 3-month-old baby to about 1.5 years, and all they do is kiss them on the face and tell them how much they love them. They're tender and sweet. And then you see that same lady 4 years later, and she's just yapping at them and snapping and saying horrible things and threatening them or bribing them, and they just lost control. And I'm like, what happened to that loving mother instinct to cradle and nurture that child to now the best way to control them is to beat them down, threaten them, or bribe them? They've lost all connection. And I just think parents need so much help. We all need so much help learning how to navigate something that there is no school on. But thank you, Greg, for creating a school. Thank you for taking thousands and thousands of hours of life studying and then putting it in a place where we can grab a hold of it and touch the, scratch to scratch.
Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt, but we are out of time for this episode. But I promise you, this conversation keeps getting better and better. So do not miss the next episode where we continue this awesome conversation between me and Brad. Just want to quickly say thank you so much for being such a great supporter of the High Performance Parenting Podcast. Please continue to like and share it with everyone that you know. And most importantly, thank you for having the heart and the desire to raise champion kids in a crazy world. Bye for now.